Picture a pilot punching into a solid wall of clouds at 200 miles per hour. The horizon disappears, the ground disappears, and within 20 seconds, that pilot's own body starts lying to him. His inner ear tells him that he's climbing when he's actually level. It tells him that he's turning when he's actually flying straight. It can even convince him he's upside down when in fact he's not. Every one of those sensations can feel completely real, and every single one of them can be dead wrong. If that pilot trusts his body instead of his instruments, he's going to die. I'm not trying to be dramatic here. It's just aviation facts. It's called spatial disorientation, and it kills experienced pilots every single year. And similarly, poker players at the table. Guys with thousands of hours, guys who knew better. And that is exactly what happens every single time you make a big decision at the poker table based on gut feel alone, a decision made without a solid process and articulable reasoning. This is Vinton Poker, precision in, profits out. I'm Vinton. I've spent over 20 years playing this game, 6 of them as a pro. And before poker, I was an airline pilot and a flight instructor. My mission with this channel is simple. I want to take the mystery and the guesswork out of your poker decision-making and replace it with something you can actually trust under pressure at the tables, especially when the pressure is at its highest. That's the whole idea behind PIPO, precision in, profits out. Today, I want to hand you one of the best mental models I've found for why smart, experienced players still bleed money at the table. Even players who study, even players who know the theory cold. It comes straight from the cockpit, and once you see it, you'll recognize it every time you face it at the tables. Pilots fly under 2 different sets of rules. VFR, visual flight rules, is when weather is clear. You can see the horizon, you can see the ground, you can see the traffic, and the flying is honestly easy. You look outside, you see where you are, and you make small corrections. Done. IFR, on the other hand, instrument flight rules, is when visibility disappears completely. You're in the clouds, you can't see a thing outside the window. And the only way to stay alive is to stop trusting your eyes and your body entirely and fly the airplane off your instruments alone. Poker works the same exact way. VFR poker is the easy stuff. You've got the nuts, the villain is obviously weak, the table is calm, nobody's stuck, nobody's tilting. Anybody can play VFR poker well, even a beginner. IFR poker is a different animal completely. It's when you're super deep and you rarely play deep stack. It's the $200 overbet on the river with a scary runout. It's the maniac who just rebet you for the 4th time this orbit. It's the spot where you're stuck a few buy-ins, your ego is wide awake, and it's screaming at you to do something about it right now. It's the hand where a normally tight regular suddenly overbet jams the pot. That's when visibility disappears at the table. That's exactly when most players crash. Not the easy hands, on these wet, messy flights. They don't crash because they lack intelligence, and they don't crash because they don't know the math. Though many players play even without knowing what instruments to check or even what their instruments are telling them. Most losing players I've worked with know something about the tools and the instruments available to them in a hand, and they know how to use them on a basic level. They can tell you the exact pot odds if you quiz them on a whiteboard with no money on the line. They can give you an idea about what kind of villain they're facing, but they lack the ability to fully understand their tools and combine their readouts to get a full picture of what's going on. They simply crash because the moment real pressure shows up, they stop using or trusting their instruments and they start trusting the wrong sensor. In an airplane, that wrong sensor is the body. At the table, that wrong sensor is your emotions. Your gut says he's bluffing, call him. But the pot odds, his line, his sizing, his profile, all of them say he has it. Your gut feels personal and immediate. It feels completely convincing in the moment. And that's exactly the problem. That gut feeling is often a set of confidently wrong data. Your gut is the vestibular system of your bankroll. It works fine in clear weather when the pot is small and nothing is really on the line. But the second the pressure shows up, fatigue, ego, fear, big pot, a long downswing, it turns dangerous fast. And it turns dangerous exactly when you can least afford it. So, what do pilots do to save their lives? They scan. Nobody flies an airplane by staring at one gauge and ignoring the rest of the panel. You're taught to move your eyes constantly. Attitude indicator, airspeed indicator, altitude indicator, heading indicator, vertical speed indicator, back to attitude indicator, over and over again. Integrating all of those into one single picture of what the airplane is actually doing right now. Not what your body says it's doing, but what the instruments say the airplane is doing. That process is called the instrument scan. And after years of playing this game and years of flying before it, I think it's the single best metaphor for what a strong poker player actually is doing at the table on every single meaningful decision. Say you're deep stacked, 3 streets in, and the villain fires a huge river overbet on a scary board. Your body reacts first, before your brain even gets a vote. Your chest tightens, your gut says, he's polarized to a bluff here, call down, don't let him run you off the pot. If you fly on that feeling alone, you're flying on vertigo, plain and simple. Instead, you scan. Hot odds, that's your price indicator. Exactly what you're risking against what's in the middle. Equity, that's your lift. How often you actually have the best hand against his real range. Position and stack depth, that's your orientation and your fuel remaining. SPR, that's your altitude indicator. How much room is there left to maneuver? Board texture, that's your weather radar. Does this board even hit the hands hit over bet with? Bet sizing, that's your vertical speed indicator. Is it climbing like a value bet or like a fear bet? Player profile, that's your traffic advisory. Is this a guy who overbets thin for value or a guy who overbets to blow people off their equity? Action history, that's your flight path. How did we actually get to this exact spot, street by street? You see, no single instrument makes this decision alone. Together, they tell you exactly how to fly the hand. Now let's look at a completely different spot, because the scan works both directions, not just when you're defending. You raise with pocket kings, you get called by one villain, and the flop comes 9-4 deuce rainbow, about as dry as the board possibly can get. This is a good problem to have, and it's exactly where gut feeling talks you into leaving money on the table. Your gut says, just get the money in. He called pre-flop, fire a big bet, and let's go. But you scan first. The player profile says this villain is a calling station, the guy who never folds a pair. That single read changes everything about how you proceed forward, because against the station, a bigger river bet doesn't just protect your hand, it gets called by worse just as often as a small one does. So the scan actually agrees with your gut feel and says, size up. Take the extra value. He's paying it regardless. Now try the same exact kings on a different day. Same flop, but this time it's a thinking regular who folds to big bets and calls small ones. Somebody who's been in the game long enough to know an overbet usually means real strength. Same 2 cards, same board, but the scan now says something completely different. That's smaller. Keep him in the hand. Extract value across 3 streets instead. The gut feeling didn't change. It wanted you to fire same size no matter who's sitting across from you. The instruments are what actually tells you the correct flight path for this particular villain on this particular day with this particular history. Before we continue, if you're getting value from this video, please like it and share it with another player who's also serious about becoming a crusher just like you. Leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. I read them all. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any future episodes. And if you want to support this channel directly, you can tip me with a super thanks in proportion to the value you're getting from these videos. It helps me keep putting out videos just like this one, and I appreciate every single one of you who contributes. Back to flying and poker. A real cockpit instrument is a calibrated machine. It gives you the accurate readouts every single time under any condition with the exact same precision. Most of what we're calling instruments in poker are not that exact, but they work in the same fundamental way and are just as effective in saving your stack and leading you to considerably more plus EV decisions. Villain's range is an estimate. His fold frequency is an estimate. His tells, his emotional state, none of that feels perfectly exact, but they are a probabilistic readout built and based on pattern recognition and population tendencies. What I'm telling you is that even an imperfect instrument still beats gut feelings every single time. And combine all of those imperfect instruments, you get a very precise, accurate estimation in every single spot without exception. When real money is on the line and your heart rate is jacked, an evidence-based estimate is still infinitely more useful than fear, ego, or hope. Let's be precise about something here, because players here trust your instruments and they take it too far. They assume intuition has no value at all. There's a massive difference between raw feelings and trained intuition. Raw feelings is fear or greed firing off in a moment, loud, immediate, and almost always wrong. Trained intuition is pattern recognition built from thousands and thousands of hands against real villains. But even trained intuition doesn't get to skip the scan. It has to earn its way into the decision by matching what the instruments actually say. Try to imagine this hand. The villain who's shoved twice in the last 3 hours, both times instantly, both times with the nuts, now takes 20 seconds before he shoves a third time. That hesitation is a signal. It's not a conclusion by itself. You check it against the instruments that actually matter here. His range in this exact spot, the sizing that got him to this point, and the board texture. If those instruments line up with the weakness, the readout holds and you act on it. If they don't line up, you fold the hunch and trust the scan instead. That's the difference between a strong player using intuition correctly and a losing player using a gut feeling as an excuse to gamble. A hunch isn't an order, it's a question. And the question is always the same. What instruments, which tools, actually confirm this? The more confirmations, the better. This is exactly the mindset I try to build in my training program, because most 1-3 and 2-5 players I work with don't actually have a knowledge problem at all. They have a scan problem. They know what pot odds are. They know what equity means. They can define SPR on command, but they don't know how to scan and combine those readouts to get the full picture. Or the second real pressure shows up, big pot, a scary card, tough opponents, they abandon the scan completely and fly on gut feelings instead, because it's easier and because they're used to it. And in those specific moments, those are the leaks that quietly drain a bankroll over an entire year without them ever noticing exactly where it went. The students inside my program who go through the course diligently, those who approach improving their game responsibly and with discipline, those players are not the same players they were 3 months earlier. If you want a structured, guided path to building that scan instead of piecing it together on your own through years of trial and error and lots of blown bankrolls, go check out my course at vintonpoker.com/course. The link is in the description below. And if you'd rather talk it through with me directly, I offer a free one-on-one coaching session where we can look at your own game together and spot the leaks draining your bank account every session. Just click the WhatsApp link in the description below or scan the QR code on the screen and grab your session while the spots are remaining. So, you get a read at the table. Before you act on it, you have to confirm if any of the tools at your disposal actually back it up. There's a name for what happens when a pilot loses that scan completely, and it fits poker perfectly. It's called spatial disorientation. When a pilot loses his horizon in a cloud, he loses his attitude reference. He loses his entire sense of where the aircraft actually is in the air. Playing on gut feelings without articulable logic does the same exact thing at the table. You forget how the hand started pre-flop. You forget the villain's profile, the one you read correctly an hour ago. You forget the price you're actually being offered right now. You don't consider the SPR, your range interactions, break-even frequencies, bluff frequencies. You don't even know how to structure your bet according to the stack sizes. You are lost in a cloud. The scan stops running. The random gut feelings take control instead. You call because you're curious. You raise because you're angry. You bluff because you don't know what else to do. You chase because you're hopeful and you're due. You reload because you're stuck. That's a graveyard spiral with chips in front of it. It happens faster than most players realize, and it will absolutely fuck up your whole session if you let it fly the hand instead of using and trusting your instruments. Pilots have a saying for these exact moments: when everything is going wrong fast and there's no time to think through it all from scratch, and when you're overwhelmed and you need a guiding light to get you back on the right path. It's aviate, navigate, communicate. First, keep the airplane flying, stabilize it. That always comes first no matter what. Then figure out where you're actually going. Then, and only then, worry about talking to air traffic control. I've created something very similar for poker, and it's just as simple to remember under pressure. Stabilize, calculate, execute. Stabilize means you control your emotions first. No panic clicks, no revenge bets, no chasing your ego around the table because you got outplayed or ran cold the last hand. Calculate means you run the scan, pot odds, equity, range, sizing, player type, board texture, and much, much more. All of it put together, not just the one instrument your gut wants to stare at. Execute means you make the highest expected value decision available to you in that exact spot, even when your body is screaming at you to do something completely different. So here's the poker scan I want you to adopt and use one more time because it's worth hearing it twice. Stabilize your emotions before the money goes in. Calculate off the actual instruments and tools available to you, not the ones your body is inventing under pressure. Execute the decision, even when it feels wrong in the moment, especially when it feels wrong in the moment, because in poker, uncomfortable decisions based on logic often tend to be the most plus EV decisions. A pilot doesn't become calm because he's fearless. Nobody's actually fearless up there. He becomes calm because he's run the same exact scan so many times that trusting it becomes automatic before the fear even gets a word in edgewise. He understands the process on such a deep level that he has developed a complete trust and is able to execute flawlessly despite all the internal signals he gets from his gut feelings and body. You must do the same in poker if you ever want to actually become a profitable player in this game. The storm never changes the procedure. It only reveals whether you actually trust your process when it counts. The difficult hands do not create your decision-making process. They expose it. When the visibility disappears, when your heart rate rises, and when the money becomes meaningful, you will either trust the scan or trust the sensation. One of those paths leads towards disciplined, repeatable profits. The other leads towards spatial disorientation with a bankroll attached. Trust the instruments, run the scan, trust the process. Stabilize, calculate, execute. That's precision in, profits out. If you want to keep improving and keep leveling up your game, watch this next video. As always, I'm your friend Vinton. GG.